Yep. Good afternoon, VHP. This is Adam here, one of your CEMA business reps. We also have Zeb here today. Hi, Zeb.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I see we're joined by Dolores as well.
Yes, we're also, we have Dolores Morales here. Dolores is the CEMA president. She's a program manager from the probation department. And before we jump in with the agenda, which I'm getting posted in chat right now, she's got a brief message that she's able to speak on as a CEMA member, but something that myself and Zeb will not be speaking on as OE3 employees. So I'll turn it over to Dolores.
Thank you, Adam. Zeb, good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me. Dolores Morales, I'm honored to serve as your CEMA president. I'm joining today because we as CEMA members, we know there's a lot of issues going on. One thing that I don't want you to miss is our local operating engineers, is our parent organization. They're having an election. They have an election every couple of years for officers. The officers make decisions about the organization. The organization oversees 4 states. And even though they have 4 states, CEMA is considered one of their a public employees organization that's important to them. It's taken us about 8 years to build the relationship with operating engineers. We are seeing, as a result of that relationship, we've been able to hire a 3rd representative, look at new office space, but more importantly, anytime we have any political issues or issues at the state or federal level, they're able to help us and intervene. One other point I want to make is that they pay for like our grievances and lawsuits, and they have a law firm that we consult often on a lot of different legal issues that we wouldn't otherwise be able to do so freely. You are going to be getting a ballot. So the ballot looks like, will come in an envelope. I don't know if you can see. One of the things that's going to be important to do as you're filling out your ballot, and what I'll do is we'll be sending out a message later today. As you're filling this out, I know we're voting for the gold ticket. I'm going to be putting the link to that in a minute, but thank you for those who voted. What I want you to remember is that we are voting for the current incumbents or appointed incumbents. And why this is important is because many of them, regardless of whether we're at the table or not, they're advocating for us. And so we want to make sure that we continue that. So summarize, you're getting your ballots this week. Please vote. Most of the time, elections are won because people don't vote by other parties. If we have new people coming in, it will be detrimental to our organization because we're not a construction, part of the construction part of the union. We're part of the public employees section. And it took a long time to have that understanding of why public employees are essential and part of that organization. And because of all the support that we get, not only as part of our infrastructure, but also part of the political aspect. So please vote. You have a few weeks to vote. It's only open from August to the end of August. The ballots are being counted I think September 1st. And hopefully we will retain the current leadership that we have. So please vote gold ticket. Please vote current incumbent or appointed incumbent. And please mail out your ballots as soon as you get them. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I'm going to be putting down my information on the chat. I'm free, like I said, to answer any questions and available if you need anything. So thank you for your time.
Thanks, Dolores. And while Zeb and I as OE3 employees can't take a position on union time on any election business, do just want to remind folks that Dolores has been a fantastic CEMA president who's seen us, through a difficult, bargaining last year to the best contract in the county, as well as helping us get through a year of layoffs without any CEMA folks having to walk out the door. So would just say everyone should be extremely appreciative of the incredible amount of work she puts in for CEMA behind the scenes, whether folks are aware of it directly or not. Really a tremendous leader for all of us. Okay, folks will see I put our agenda for this meeting in chat. There's also kind of a brief blurb under each item we're going to be hitting with just some of the key points. We're doing that for the future for folks who tend to join meetings late or sometimes can't stay the whole time, just to get kind of some of the main points that we're going to be hitting with each topic. So the main focus today is going to be talking about the vaccine mandate and what the county's doing there, what CEMA is doing there, what next steps are. We'll be talking a little bit about telework. Those two issues have become extremely intertwined because of this, the county pushing the vaccine mandate. And then after that, we'll talk briefly about CEMA's third rep, and then what we're referring to as real teams or GARE work taking place in some parts of the county. And with that, we'll jump in. So vaccine mandate. First thing real quick, just to catch folks up on where we're at here. This is something everyone unfortunately learned about first through the news media, right? Through first a Mercury News article a couple of weeks back, where Dr. Smith was quoted as saying there'd be a vaccine mandate coming for county employees. And then secondarily through, it was a CBS article where County Counsel James Williams was quoted saying there would be an imminent, what was referred to as a real vaccine mandate coming into effect imminently. After those articles hit, CEMA reached out to ESA with concerns saying, hey, this is a mandatory subject of meet and confer with the union. Do you have anything to talk about? CEMA would absolutely like to meet and start discussing this so we can, settle on a policy that works for our members, works for the county, works for the public. And the repeat answer that we got back from ESA was nothing to see yet, but we will meet as appropriate once we have something to meet on. Unfortunately, the working day following the article where James Williams was quoted, the policy was rolled out and it was effective immediately, right? So for anyone who has not seen that yet, I imagine most have, there is now a policy in effect that gives folks a specific deadline to either get vaccinated or to submit an exemption form request. And the technicals on that as of right now are you need to at least be scheduled for a vaccine by the first deadline. And there's a second deadline, we got to be scheduled for a second vaccine, or you need to at least submitted the exemption requests, right? And we can get that document posted for anyone who hasn't seen it with the specific timelines in there. However, the first thing to note on that is immediately following the policy going out, CEMA sent a cease and desist notice to the county and requested to meet and discuss this. And hopefully most folks will have seen what followed was a more comprehensive response by CEMA that, Zeb, myself, and your elected CEMA board worked together on crafting. And that came out, it was this past Monday. Folks will have seen that response. And in that response, CEMA took kind of two positions broadly, I would say. The first one is that we reiterated that not only is this an inappropriate practice that the county has rolled out and immediately implemented this policy change on workers after they had to learn about it through the news media as opposed to the appropriate workplace channels. But this is a continuation of similar behavior that we saw, for example, with the rollout of the return to work, the telework policy, where labor unions, not just CEMA, are really being treated as an afterthought, right? And not engaged with. And of course, CEMA stated, look, as a membership, and we know this from our recent survey, CEMA's overwhelmingly vaccinated as a unit, more than 84%, and also overwhelmingly pro-vaccine mandate, right? That being said, that doesn't eliminate the need and the right for us to meet and confer with the county and make sure that this is a policy that works for us and our members with appropriate exemptions, with reasonable timelines, so on and so forth, right? So that was the first demand, right? Is that this is a continuation of unacceptable behavior by the county, and you need to pause this while you meet with CEMA. And then the second major response from CEMA was, look, frankly, this is a crisis of the county's own manufacturing that you're saying for, the safety of the workplace and public safety, this needs to be put in effect immediately. And Why is it a crisis of the county's own manufacturer? Well, the county brought everyone back to work with some exceptions. I know there's quite a few folks from VHP still on full telework, but most departments in the county will return to work in July, right? In the middle of summer, it had quite a disparate impact, particularly on, single parents, I would say, where it's been hard to find, daycare kind of midsummer during the pandemic. But, that was the push, and the claim was that the workplace is safe now. We need to get everyone back into the office to resume business as usual. But now there's the message that actually the workplace is so dangerous that we, one, are reinstituting mask mandates and considering mandating N95s now, and two, that we need to mandate vaccination. And both of those things can't be true, right? It can't simultaneously be that the workplace is so safe, even departments that were teleworking at 100% productivity or more than 100% productivity, as we know some departments in VHP were, right, from a pre-pandemic comparison, that those departments had to be brought back to work because it was safe. But it's so dangerous, we have to mandate vaccination, right? There's an obvious conflict there. And the reasonable solution here is that, look, folks that were able to telework at full or near full productivity and efficiency should be back out. Not just because you're saying it's so dangerous that folks need to get vaccinated, but frankly, everything else we're seeing going on right now, that, Delta the Delta strain of COVID seems to be reasonably transmissible amongst people who are already vaccinated. And it's okay to do a risk benefit analysis to say, hey, maybe some services we weren't able to provide with a full lockdown mode. So, we need to provide public services, some risk is acceptable. But if there's no benefit, for example, to a department that was functioning at full capacity teleworking, if there's no benefit to bringing them back, then no level of risk is going to be acceptable, right? So those were the two main messages that CEMA put in its message to county leadership. We've had an initial meeting with the county, and we'll talk about that in a bit, and then we'll talk a bit about what next steps are. But first I want to pause, see if Zeb would like to add anything before we move on, and see if there are any questions to just kind of catching folks up to where we are right now.
Sure. So you hit all the high points, and absolutely, I'm just going to reiterate that in chat. So if you have to leave right away, you get exactly what Adam and CEMA's position is. I want to highlight that this should in no way be construed as CEMA taking an anti-vaccine stance, right? Some members were confused on that even earlier I got some private messages even in our last site meeting. People were like, why is CEMA taking an anti-vaccine stance? We are not. We're pro-vaccine. I can't say that enough. We're pro-vaccine. We are, however, also pro-member rights. And some members, not all, some members have bona fide reasons to not get the vaccine, right? And we have to make sure that their rights are respected, and we have to make sure that the union rights are respected. And the other piece is that by inextricably linking this to telework, which Adam did, and we did, is a key component of our legislative strategy. So county says, everybody back to work. It turns out the workplace is super dangerous. Everybody get a mandate for vaccine now, right? An obvious tool in our toolkit to help slow the spread is telework. And it's shocking to me that the policy makers in the county just didn't believe that. So that's part of our effort right now. And that's one of the reasons that we're approaching labor relations, county leadership, and the board of supervisors in this way. And we may, I don't think you touched on this point, Adam, we may be calling upon many of you to speak before the board. Or at least we might even have an email campaign or something like that, but we'll see how that develops.
Mm-hmm. I'm not seeing any questions in chat yet. So feel free to jump in, folks. You have the ability to unmute yourself because we have less than 50 people, or you can type something, of course. But moving on. So CEMA had an initial meeting with labor relations, right? That took place this past Monday. CEMA was the first union that met with labor relations following that announcement. And at that meeting, we put the two demands that were in that that initial letter we sent out, we put those two demands to labor again as well. One being cease and desist this implementation until we've had the chance to bargain over impacts. There's a recent controlling PERB ruling on this. PERB is the Public Employees Relations Board. They govern, relationships between public sector unions and employers. And there's a ruling from now just 3 weeks ago or so saying that for public employer vaccine mandates, the employer is not obligated to bargain the question of whether or not there will be a mandate, but you are required to bargain over effects and impacts. So that would be, for example, what if we have somebody who doesn't want to get vaccinated? What happens, right? For example, that could be an impact. Timelines, things like that are reasonable impacts. And the county's chosen to ignore that ruling in a way that, for example, other nearby municipalities and counties haven't. They've been respectful of it. So we can talk a little bit about the politics later when we focus on the politics about what that likely means. So it was the first 2 points in the meeting. One, we need confirmation that you are in fact going to follow PERB's direction and delay this. And two, we want you to send all folks back onto the telework who are able to telework at full capacity. So those are the first 2 points that needed to be made. Beyond that, we started talking about some of the details of the policy as it's written right now and some of the concerns that we have. We can highlight just a couple of those, but I want to move on and talk about the politics, which I think is relevant as well. But some of those, high level concerns we had, for example, were, what number of staff is the county expecting to lose as a result of the vaccine mandate, right? So you all know that CEMA, after Dr. Smith was quoted in Mercury News, we put out a survey that week to our membership saying, hey, it looks like this vaccine mandate's being considered. We want to get some feedback from our membership. Where do you all stand on this to help inform our response? And as part of that, there were separate questions for folks who were not yet vaccinated, right? And one of those questions was, if a vaccine mandate happens, is put into effect, what will you do, right? And what our internal survey shows with CEMA members is that the vaccine mandate is going to have very little impact on whether or not folks are willing to get vaccinated, right? That almost the entirety of that group will put in for a religious exemption or a medical exemption. So then that raises the question of how many people are going to qualify for it. And folks almost unanimously said that if they didn't qualify for one of those, they would quit county employment, right, rather than get vaccinated. Now it's easier to say that on a survey, I guess, than it is to be in that situation. So we'd see what would happen, but that could be some significant percentage based on our internal survey. We have about 7.5% of folks in CEMA are not vaccinated, and then another 6% or so declined to state. So some percentage of those folks are unvaccinated, right? But potentially, we're one of the most vaccinated units in the county. But even if you just looked at CEMA's internal numbers, there's a possibility here where the county takes a hard stance on this, implements it, and the county loses 10% of its workforce, right? If we see, for example, the same kind of responses to requests for exemptions on the vaccine that we're seeing for accommodation requests around telework, right, which have been almost universally denied. And the response from the county, for example, on that question was, we have no idea what those numbers are, and we haven't even asked ourselves that question. And that's concerning, right? As a union that represents folks who are in charge of departments, that the county would make this kind of decision without having their eyes open, at least, right? And the answer might very well be, yes, we're going to lose 10% of county staff, but this is a public safety issue, and we think we need to do it. But you need to at least be informed when you make that decision. You need to know what the impacts are going to be, so you can appropriately measure it, and secondarily, so you can plan for the impacts. Other concerns we raised were pushing for alternatives, for example, accommodating folks who don't want to get the vaccine or can't with telework. And, the obvious county response on those issues is, hey, we don't want to be in a situation where people can, effectively legislate themselves full-time telework in a county where they're trying to keep folks to kind of 2 or 3 days of telework per week, right? As just a rule for whatever reason in most departments. And to be fair to ESA and labor relations, that would be a difficult situation to manage. But when you keep in mind that that's a perfectly reasonable option that keeps the workplace entirely safe, then it changes the calculation on what you're looking at, right? It's not that either we have a vaccine mandate and fire people or we have a safe workplace. It's that we have a policy that's uncomfortable for ESA to have to manage and deal with, or we have this mandate that could push out some significant number of dedicated county folks, right? That's a much different equation than saying the only other option is an unsafe workplace, right? There's other options and things that CEMA is pushing that is the county saying we're not considered as of this point, right? So that's our initial meeting with the county. We were, we heard back from labor that we'd have an answer at least on that first question as to whether the county is going to delay implementation by the end of Tuesday, I guess. And we've still not seen that response. The county's been meeting with all other labor units over the last few days. They've now met with most unions. I expect we'll at least see an answer back on that. On the one hand, it's difficult to imagine that there's going to be a substantial delay, given that, you know, this was likely vetted, you know, through county council, given we can see James Williams' stance in the media previously, and in the decision that's in contravention of the very recent PERB decision. So in some sense, it would be strange to make this hardline stance to immediately back down off it. But we'll see. There may be a delay on implementation while they continue to meet with unions, or there may not. And we don't have an answer on that yet. Hopefully we have one soon. With that, I'll pause there and I'll let Zeb talk a little bit about the politics on this.
Sure. So we've been engaged in, I wouldn't say hard lobbying at this point, I would say soft lobbying. So the letter that we shared with you all via the CEMA e-blast, that went to executive leadership. However, a careful reading of it will see that it was crafted for eventual distribution to other participants. And those participants being the Board of Supervisors, possibly to our membership, which we did end up sharing it with, and others. So it's not, the audience may seem like you might look at it and say, hey, look, this is a Jeff to address to Jeff, the head of labor relations, and also to John Mills, the head of ESA. So maybe that's the narrow group. Yeah, but if you look at the language and you look at like things that we cited and like the news interviews and when they occurred, when CEMA, it's setting it up so that a third party that reads it, like you all as members, or like the Board of Supervisors or their aides, will look at it and say, wow, look at this sequence of events. Look at the good efforts that CEMA made to reach out well ahead of time. And the county said nothing to see here and then slapped them with something. So we set the stage, I think, strategically in that aspect. And now it's been circulated to the entire board. The board has been, at least have all acknowledged receipt. They've made supportive noises, but with little actual commitment to things, right? They're saying, oh, we of course value CEMA as a participant, a bargainer, a player. We of course value our relationship with you. It's unacceptable that the county has treated you in this way. When we applaud the board for those sentiments, and we appreciate that, and we do value our working relationship, it's really going to come down to what direction are they going to give to labor relations or the administration to make this right with CEMA. And we also, so there's kind of two aspects here. On the one hand, we want to achieve the goals that Adam outlined. Link the issue to telework, get enhanced telework, make sure that our members who have bona fide exceptions, we understand the process, they understand the process, and we understand how they'll be treated in the workplace after they get the exception, assuming they do. And then of course, put in writing some of those things that we already discussed about on county time at county expense, and then that the implementation date be pushed back. Adam cited some great case law there from PERB so that we can preserve our union rights as well. Those are our goals.
Can you frame this in the context of the board not being back from recess yet, Zeb, what that means?
Sure, thank you. So many of you, the astute political observers will note that the board has been in recess and their first date back is August 17th. So they've been out for 6 weeks. They're coming back the 17th, next Tuesday, and they're coming back to many changes since they left. The return to work was implemented, as has been the vaccine mandate has been announced, let's call it. So a lot of this is catch up for the board. Their offices have been open, which means that their advisors and board aides, they're all at work, churning away, right? But the board members themselves have been gone and the board has been in recess. So this is a daunting thing for them to face on their first on their first meeting back. Also, since they've been out, the budget has improved. We'd seen a gradual improvement of the budget up until then, but then we saw an additional infusion of cash from the state and feds, and the property roll tax closed higher than anticipated. So those are all positive benefits to the county as well. So yeah, the recess does impact this. They'll be coming back on the 17th, addressing many issues, and this is one that we really need to get in front of them on. I believe that many of the items that we have listed will be achieved. I believe there will be a delay in implementation. Those are the noises we're hearing. I believe there will be delay in implementation. I believe the exceptions or exemptions, however you want to characterize it, will be codified. I believe that it will be put in writing that it's on county time and expense. Here's where I think we're going to face a lot of challenge. Linking telework, enhancing telework because of the vaccine mandate and just to mitigate COVID-19, that I think will be challenging because that's where administration is pushing back the hardest. I think it's a great argument that we have. I think we put the pieces into place, and the timing is going to be critical as well. This can't be forever, right? We have to say, well, when is it that we can return to the workplace? So if we prevail on the telework argument and we get a lot of enhanced telework for you all, the board, labor relations, the CEO are legitimately going to ask, okay, until when? And our response just can't be, well, until there are more salubrious environs for us to return to. It has to be something that, well, maybe it's tethered to the case count. Maybe it's tethered to when the health officer lifts the mask mandate. I mean, who knows? But we need to be able to tether it to something that everyone has a strong comfort level with, and the board has a strong comfort level with. So that's our next level of problem solving as well.
Okay, let's pause real quick there. I have a couple questions I got in direct message, so let me read those. So we're getting questions.
Means healthy. Someone just texted me that.
That was 2 SAT words in a row. There's a salubrious environs. That's pretty good. So I have 2 questions here. One is this going to mean that folks are going to need to continue to get vaccinated every year, or insert timeline that the CDC, NIH, FDA, whatever starts recommending for booster shots for the vaccine, right? We're seeing in the news that's probably coming first for Pfizer. I got Pfizer. Guess should have got Moderna. I don't know. But does this policy cover potential booster shots? So that was one of the questions we put to labor in our initial meeting. And yes and no. It sets up the framework by which a booster shot could be required, but this policy delineates specific timelines for vaccination, end of August and in September, for folks to get vaccinated, and those obviously wouldn't apply to a booster shot that's not yet out and recommended for general populace, right? So no, there would need to be some modifications, but if this policy stands as it is, then it would be reasonably easier for the county to then require additional booster shots and mandates for folks down the line, right? One wrinkle I would add here, folks at VHP aren't, we have some nurses here, for example, you're not working in the healthcare setting, but just be aware, as there's reasonable movement between those sites for folks that are healthcare workers. So not anybody working at VHP on site or from home, but folks considering transferring back over there maybe. There's a separate question here for our healthcare workers because of Governor Newsom's orders, which could be read to apply to our healthcare workers that requires a vaccine mandate. So even if, for example, the county just woke up tomorrow and said, it's too much hassle, we're not going to do a vaccine mandate, everyone just has to get vaccinated or get tested every other day, and we're going to do what other counties are doing on that front, there would still likely be authority for HHS to mandate our healthcare workers get vaccinated. That's a separate question, and it would be a more difficult challenge on that front. Okay, one more question here. Oh, no, this is the same question twice in a row. Yeah, so for
Hello, Adam.
future, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, hi. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No worries.
This is the first time actually kind of being assistant, I guess, into this virtual meeting. This is Francisco, by the way. And I'm very concerned about, I work at VHP in the credentialing department.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I'm a little bit concerned and confused at the same time due to the fact that since I personally, I've been very productive. I mean, I would say maybe 200% more than when I was actually in the office by doing the telework. Nonetheless, so just about about a week and a half probably, we were told, basically ordered by our manager, that we needed it to go back into the office. Basically, not everyone, but one at a time. Basically, one individual per day needed it to be in the office.
Mm-hmm.
Then we were only given like 2 days in advance. This was a Thursday, and we needed it to start Monday. So 2 business days.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, it was not really voluntary, in a voluntary basis. It was like, I felt like it was an order. It was just ordered it to be there. When our CEO, who I totally respect, everyone there, we were informed that, if anyone needed it to be there or the transition wasn't going to take place until October.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I quite wasn't ready for that. But of course, I mean, I feel like I have no choice. At the same time, then we were asked that we needed it to provide proof of vaccination. So we needed it to scan our vaccination card in order to show that we're being fully vaccinated. So I just felt like, oh, well, what's happening? I mean, it's not that I'm against that. It just felt like, I mean, to me, that I don't think that was right. And then I got this email from CEMA, which actually, in fact, I did ask before even going into the office, I did approach my manager and ask her, well, has this been approved or run by our, CEMA member? Or, I mean, I'm not very familiar about all of this, how this works. But at the same time, I didn't want to kind of, I guess, desist on not, doing what VHP was asking me to do. I mean, bottom line is I ended up going into the office. I mean, I haven't been wearing a mask here at home because I actually set up an actual office in my house. Just to make sure, I give more than 100% to my work, to my job. I mean, when I was there,
Francisco, Francisco,
yes.
let me jump in real quick and answer, because you already had 2 questions there that are going to require a bit to answer. So let me answer those real quick, and then if you still have more after that, I'd say stick on after the call and answer any more. But there were 2 good questions there that are going to require a little bit. So first one is, can folks be ordered back into the office? Yes, this is something most workplaces went through last month, right? Most of our workforce was returned to the office by July 15th, I would say. And even departments that were teleworking extremely effectively and extremely productively, right? And then after that, departments were approving new telework schedules for CEMA employees, right? CEMA's kind of set the baseline that we expect to see every department have more telework than there was pre-COVID, pre-lockdown. And in general, at least 2 days a week, right? So kind of where we're seeing most of the county land is 2 or 3 days a week of telework. Some areas like TSS are being more flexible than others. But ultimately, yes, telework's not an individual right for employees, and a department can say we're expecting you back in, next week, whatever it may be. And I would encourage anyone who's been directed to come back in to put in their telework request, right? So you can get that sorted. That's one reason why, though, CEMA is trying to link, the county saying, hey, the workplace is so dangerous, we all gotta, wear masks again and get vaccinated, to hey, for those folks who are teleworking extremely productively from home, there's no reason to be here and there's no reason to absorb the risk, right? So that's the response there. As far as can they require you to prove vaccination, that's what this new policy does, right? For folks that are uncomfortable with that, the first deadline isn't until, if the current policy stands, until August 20th. You know, Zeb gave you his assessment there that he thinks it's likely there's at the very least a modification and a pushback of that date, while we continue to sort through exemptions, et cetera. So at the very least, though, I would say, you know, you have some time before, you know, you can really be required to submit that. And no, VHP can't separately tell you that you're being required to do this by some sooner date. So no, it can't just be that, you know, whichever executive report to a VHP says, hey, I need you to send me your vaccination card. No, they can't do that. Or they can.
Okay. Well, yeah, well, I did. I mean, because I don't have any problem about that, but I just like to make sure we go by what the policy actually states, you know. But then at the same time, I attended there. I ended up going, which is fine, but I just wanted to share that really the office itself, it just felt so stuffy. It was so hot in there, and I was just less productive. And I told my manager, I'm just sharing that. I was probably at 20% productive that day versus, you know, what I have accomplished. For me, it was almost like a waste of a whole day, you know. And I just wanted it to confirm that. So in simple words, if they're asked us to go there, they don't need to provide us enough time. We should be going at whatever time they ask us to go. I just wanted to confirm that.
Okay. Anything you want to add on to that, Zeb?
Nope. That's all I wanted it to confirm. Thank you so much.
Yeah. I have another private question here. Let me address real quick. So recognizing the county has hired individuals for a job that was likely in office prior to the pandemic, is the county concerned over productivity and community support functions the county provides being performed? Yes. So that's generally the main, well, one of the main reasons the county's saying we need to get folks back in the office, right? Is they're saying our job and our role, and they're correct on this, is to provide services to the public, right? We're here to serve the public. And we want to ensure that there's no slackening in the services that we provide, right? And they're making an argument that we need folks in the office to do that. And for plenty of departments, that's obviously true, right? 911 County Comm is not a department that's ever going to telework effectively, right? Unless we have some radical changes in technology in the near future. You know, you can't do nursing from home. Most nursing jobs, you know, maybe case management, things like that are doable from home to a certain degree, but you can't give an injection, you know, over Zoom. Can't fill a pothole over Zoom, right? So there's plenty of departments that need to be in office for services to be provided. VHP is always going to have to maintain, you know, some significant presence so that, you know, members can come in and see somebody with concerns they have, right? So yeah, that's a concern. And I would say the other concerns that the county has generally stated as reasons are, you know, there's intangibles that are a benefit from having in-office, you know, contact with folks, whether it's, you know, mentorship opportunities or, you know, rapid assistance on issues or workplace culture or all that kind of stuff. Those are, I would say, the more woolly reasons the county cites for benefits of working from the office. And, you know, part of CEMA's goal is just to make sure we're pointing out that, look, there are plenty of legitimate reasons you can come up with for why working in the office is good. But that needs to be had, that conversation needs to be had in the same breath with citing the benefits of telework. Those things need to be weighed, right? And that there's strong arguments on both sides. And we would argue stronger ones on the benefit of telework right now, especially given issues with workplace safety, right? So that's part of our role in that. Okay, well, I don't see any other questions, so I'm going to move us on to the next topic on our agenda here. So next item we have is we're calling it GARE and kind of real teams. This is something we've been talking about at recent site meetings, but it's only at least right now, primarily relevant for SSA, for social services, right? That's where this issue initially came to our attention. So the concern brought to us by some members and senior hiring manager or director positions at SSA was that they had hiring panels put together for positions that they were hiring, and that there were what were referred to as real team members. So real teams were folks that had gone through GARE training, right? GARE is the Government Alliance on Racial Equity. That there were real team members that were on the hiring panel, and that it was made clear to the hiring manager that consensus was expected from the assembled group on the hiring panel before any hiring decision was made, and that the real team member whose job was, I guess, purportedly to bring a racial justice and racial equity lens to the hiring process, basically exercised veto power over the candidate that the hiring manager and the rest of the panel wanted to hire, right? And the concern from the hiring manager was, wait, are you telling me that this candidate has the wrong skin color? Because that's obviously unacceptable. So, CEMA escalated this concern, as well as concerns that there were delays in the hiring process because no real team member was available to SSA leadership. At which point they I think issued a reasonably strong response, confirming, saying, no, absolutely, real team members should not have, veto or hiring authority, that they're working on codifying what exactly those folks' role is going to be on hiring panels moving forward. CEMA's response was, look, the hiring process is already one of the most, legally fraught and likely to spawn lawsuits or EEOC complaints in the employment world. And you guys are going to reasonably be getting questions from applicants saying, hey, who's this real team member on my hiring panel? And can you give me some kind of response that ensures me that their role isn't to contravene my civil rights in the hiring process, right? Or contravene the merit system rules? And that we're asking you what that answer is going to be and you don't have it yet is concerning that you're already rolling this practice out, right? It's obvious that should have been thought through first. What's the response on that? And, I'll pause here to say that, similar to the vaccine mandate, this is obviously not CEMA taking I call it an anti-racism stance on this, right? But we want to ensure that we're not exposing our managers to, being involved in more, discrimination complaints and employment litigation than our folks already are, right? I know Zeb and myself are generally in at least 2 or 3 equal opportunity complaints a week against our managers. It's a huge time suck for the county and for our managers, and we don't need to be introducing new nexus points of potential complaints and discrimination, right? So that was pulled back to a certain degree. The other major concern I would say we shared was, look, the county has at least what tries to be, and by design, is a hiring process that should protect against discrimination, right? It's supposed to be based on merit. It's supposed to exclude all other factors, right? That's the goal of the county's hiring process. We all know you can finagle it to a certain degree. I gave so-and-so a provisional position outside merit system hiring process. Therefore, when the hiring came due, they already had a foot in the door because they're like, hey, I've been doing this job successfully for a year. Aren't I a great candidate? And the answer is going to be yes, obviously. And they were in that position because you gave them the provisional position on a non-merit system a year ago. So there's ways to finagle the system, right, to a certain degree. But the system at least tries to be non-discriminatory in nature, right? So if you're a hiring manager, you're being held to that standard where if an EO officer asks you to demonstrate that you didn't hire somebody in a discriminatory manner, you're expected to be able to prove that. So then the concern is that, wait, here's somebody from one of these real teams who was given this position on a real team, based on executive discretion, right? So they weren't awarded that position through, some meritorious process. And now this person's dictating to me who I can and cannot hire, or at least it felt like that to some of our hiring managers, right? So it seems like in your effort to help us have a more equitable hiring process, you've introduced an obviously inequitable process to it, right? And that those optics seemed obviously bad to us and CEMA, right? And to the managers that were in this situation. So those are the questions that we put to the folks, putting this in place over at SSA. And then in the background of this, the reason this has been relevant for other site meetings is that, we want to ensure that, this, if the race equity lens is going to be brought to the hiring process in our other sites, that it's done in a more thoughtful and reasonable manner than has been done in SSA, right? So far, I've had meetings with a number of departments in my other areas who are fairly advanced along kind of GARE implementation in various aspects of the workplace. And everyone's made it clear that's not their intent to implement, the way SSA did, at least in the first couple steps over there. But this is something that's on CEMA's radar. And I've not heard about this being an issue at VHP for any hiring that you guys have been doing. Please feel free to reach out if this is something that comes up and is concerning to you as a hiring manager down the line. Something that we absolutely want to address. I'll pause there for any Zeb to add anything that he would like to.
Yeah, thank you, Adam. I just want to put a bit of a narrative spin on this. Imagine how shocked you would be if you're a hiring manager, which a lot of you are, and a lot of our members are, and you walk into one of your hiring panels, and you're used to maybe working with 2-3 other people on a hiring panel, and the executive's there to kind of open the panel and you say, hey, Joe, whatever, what's going on? And then someone you don't recognize walks into the room and sits down at the table. And you're like, oh, hey, who are you? Oh, this is the real team's member. The executive says, this is the real team's member. They're going to be participating in the hiring panel. They've got a few questions that they've made by themselves, right, to ask the candidate. And I'll see you when panel A is done, when we're talking about panel B. And I expect a unanimous, or I expect consensus from this group on anyone that moves to the next panel. So you're kind of caught flat-footed, right? And this exact situation is what happened to 2 of our managers over at SSA, where they were not prepared for this person to be there. The person was there, and then in one circumstance overrode the top pick, and in another circumstance didn't. That person, the top pick, made it to the next panel, but of course, kind of what I would characterize as inappropriate questions were asked. So this is what, to Adam's point, it's not an anti-racist or equity position. We just want to make sure that our members' rights as hiring managers, your rights as a hiring manager, is preserved. And again, that we don't introduce another opportunity for anyone who succeeds or doesn't in that interview now has an immediate nexus for an EO complaint, right? That guy succeeded because of the color of their skin, because of their religion, because of their gender. I succeeded because of the color of my skin, because of my gender, because of my sexuality, whatever it might be. So we really want to make sure that there's a lot of thought put into it. And of course, as Adam correctly pointed out, it implies that our current process is racist or discriminatory at the very least, which is not a desirable outcome either. So we're glad to announce that that policy was pulled back. The real team members will no longer be participating in these hiring panels. The department's going to look at it and see how they can have perhaps real team members participate in crafting questions that might elicit responses, and maybe suss out, if you will, really favorable responses to how you might deal with EO in the workplace, because that's a reality of working in the county. We all know that. So implementing this in a well thought out, better way is really our end goal, and we're already moving that way. Thanks, Adam.
Mm-hmm. I got a question here from a member privately saying they don't understand how there's so many program manager positions that are given to people as promotions, but the jobs don't seem to be posted, or they go from a regular position to a manager in a department that has PM title and pay, yet it doesn't seem to be. Yes, I think so. It hasn't been posted again. This is something that I've definitely heard a number of times from folks at VHP. I'd encourage you, if there's another current instance of this, to send me the example of it. When I've sat down with HR folks at VHP in the past to look at specific examples, I haven't seen one where a position wasn't posted and it wasn't given to someone inappropriately. Generally, the position will be provisional if someone's just gotten it without it being posted, period. But yeah, I'm always happy to look into any individual situations. And if you want to send me one, I'm happy to run it down for someone. But at least in times when I've looked into that in the past, it's not, I haven't seen anything that's a violation of the merit system rules. Though that doesn't mean it hasn't happened. It just means the ones that I've been asked to look into previously haven't been the case.
And to that point, Adam, we can contest, and you as an individual member can contest. It doesn't have to be the union. If you believe that has happened, that there has been an inappropriate posting, you can contest that right away, and don't wait, right away to HR, HR/ESA. And they have to put a hold on that position. It's only for 5 days, but they put a hold on it while they investigate that claim. Merit system rules require that it be posted. And as a tip to people who are particularly interested in whatever, a management analyst code, a PM code, whatever it might be, go to ESA, the intranet. Adam and I can't get to this, and you sign up for an interest form. And whenever a code in that position is posted, you get an email. So don't put your junk email, don't put your spam email account either, because I've had people do that. They put their spam email account there, and then they're like, I was on vacation and I didn't get the notification. Well, we send it to where the email address you told us, you know?
Yeah. And for example, I have an issue that just came up at one of the sites, and not VHP, where, you know, a manager said, hey, my director knows that I'm interested in a promotional opportunity. I've been asking for a while. I've been not giving work out of class opportunities. People that report to me are being given those work out of class opportunities in positions above me. And then I was on an emergency leave of absence for 3 weeks. And surprise, that's when the position got posted and filled. And that was my suggestion to the member, right? Was, look, the director doesn't have an obligation to give you a courtesy phone call while you're off to let you know. Would have been nice if he or she did, right? But the best thing you can do to ensure that doesn't happen is, you know, that the system's set up to allow you to put alerts in, so you know when a job's gotten posted. And then that'll also give you kind of a definitive answer if something wasn't posted and it was awarded. But the person who asked this question just sent me another message saying, but isn't that what I said, me being I, isn't that what I said previously, giving someone provisional knowing they will get the job? Yes, but the point I was making there is that giving someone a provisional position, you can do that without following the merit system rules, right? It can just be given to someone. And yes, we all understand that likely gives the person a leg up in getting a full-time or a coded position down the line. But that's a feature of the system that we have, right? Or a bug, depending on, you know, what side of it you're ending up on. So that's not something there's really that CEMA would have a mechanism to contest, right? You're allowed to award provisional positions as you see fit as a manager. And that inherently just is going to make someone look better on a future hiring panel. So if provisional positions are being awarded in a discriminatory manner, maybe that's something that there'd be a mechanism to address. But generally, it's part of the way the system that the county has allows for that. Anything you want to add on that, Zeb? Okay.
I have a labor management meeting, so I have to jet out of here.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
Last item we had on here, and then like I said, I'll stick around a little bit for questions after we're done recording, was on CEMA's third rep position. So we had an offer out, which we thought and hoped was going to be accepted, but unfortunately for the individual, the offer was made to, ended up deciding that cost of relocating to the area and living cost here just wasn't going to work out for that person individually, I guess. And the applicant ended up declining the offer that CEMA made. So real bummer. We've been at 2 reps for about a year now, but the position is reposted. I just wanted to give folks an update that there still is that position available for a third rep, and we're looking forward to getting somebody in. And we thought we had somebody, but unfortunately the offer was declined. So hopefully we'll have some good news on that shortly. And again, if anybody knows somebody with labor union experience, or there's any CEMA folks that are interested in applying for the position, please do feel free to reach out. Okay, I'm going to stop recording here, and then we will chat a little more.